A lot of reviewers of Arknights Endfield will compare it against the top gacha games. Nothing wrong with that, it's in our nature to do so. Endfield is like Genshin, Endfield is not like Honkai Star Rail, or Endfield is becoming the next Wuthering Waves. These conversations will carry on, but I personally don't partake in them. There's only one live service game that I play for a long time, and that is Arknights. If you can't tell from my posters, been playing it for 6 years, it's the game that I enjoy the most. In the sea of content creators that only play the other gacha games and having not played Arknights all that much, there would be an inherent missing discussion. These aren't the people who's going to be talking about whether or not Endfield is a good rendition, a good second game for Arknights. There are Arknights content creators who do just that, but it opens up a whole other topic, where some of them would say that there is a missing Arknights identity in Endfield. What is the Arknights identity? Whether or not the identity is in the beta test, how can Endfield present this identity better in the launch and the future? And finally, there are lots of people who's gonna play Endfield having not tried Arknights at all. How can they be presented the world of Arknights without being scared or feel like they know nothing of it, and yet learn to also enjoy it together with the existing community? My review for Endfield will be split into 3 videos. This first one will talk about the story and the combat, the next one will talk about the gacha, and the final one will talk about the base. Let's get started. The story of Arknights Endfield. I didn't enjoy it. It doesn't mean that I hate it or dislike it, I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't anything special, but it wasn't a bad story either. It was just a passing story that I might end up forgetting. This comment specifically goes out to the first giant region that you'll play in the game, that is Valley 4. A lot of exposition to go through, you'll be learning about the world, your purpose as the administrator, what your operators do, and the antagonists as well. Coupled together with the borderline storytelling, it also comes with a lot of tutorials. It's a common complaint that you hear across the content creators. On one hand, I don't mind it because I understand that there's just a lot of game concepts within Endfield, and it's important to teach people who don't have a good idea at the start. But on the other, for people who understand it quickly, I just want the ability to skip the tutorials as and when I want to. Why is there no skip button? Because of all these tutorials at the beginning of the game, it causes a lot of friction in the way that they do the storytelling, right? You're first in the world, then all of a sudden they have to present you a concept, and then you're in the world again, and another concept, and it keeps going on for Valley 4. Valley 4 takes a long time in your initial gameplay. You will be involved a lot in this world in order to build your units at the start of the game, to build up your base as you see, and to really play through a lot of the story content. I would say that realistically, people will have a true amount of game time of 30 to 50 hours in Valley 4 before they go on to the next region. When it comes to the story of the next region, I don't really have a complaint there. I actually think that the next region has a much more enhanced storytelling experience. There are great characters to look forward to. There's good mysteries that are set up, things that you'll look forward to. There will be Arknights players who shares the same sentiment as me, telling you that Endfield's story doesn't feel that great as well. But let me tell you a fascinating thing about Arknights, whether or not you've played the game. Half of the players in the global space have never read Arknights story at all. Some of them have caught glimpses of the story on social media, watched some summary videos uploaded onto YouTube, but for most of them, they can't even bear to read the first sentence of the first story. I don't have the statistic to back up this 50%, but I'll let my comment section do the admitting of whether they read the story or not. The main reason why players aren't reading the Arknights storyline is that it's a visual novel experience. There are no flashy animations, there's no voiceovers, it's just you reading a book. And with every story that they release, the number of words averages to about 40,000 to 50,000, which can take people hours to complete. For those people who read the story, however, there is also another common sentiment. A lot of people will tell you that the starting launch story of AK was just rough. It wasn't all that much entertaining as well. You didn't really know what you were anticipating in the future. Arknights first launched with 6 playable stories. You've got Chapter 0 to Chapter 4, and also one side story which is Granny's and the Next Treasure. It's where this girl Skadi comes from. These stories were just stories that don't really amount much to anything at that point in time. But as AK starts moving on year by year and launch more main and side story, you start to see that that initial part of the storyline was just to flash what's happening with the entirety of the world. And then soon enough, a lot of more well-written stuff have appeared in the game. There are so many unforgettable stories. Lots of people give up reading the story because of how the start of it is just abysmal. It doesn't give you a good first impression for whatever's to come. This is simply the bad habit, the direction that the developer of Arknights, Hyperglyph, chooses to take. They love their slow burns. Slow burn stories basically mean that the front of the story might not feel like much is going on, but a lot of it is just a build up to the point that when they want to do the big drops in the storyline, it is explosive. It will feel absolutely amazing to read that section of the story. Hyperglyph just doesn't sell an instant gratification when it comes to the storyline. Instead, they do expect the players to have patience. And patience isn't easy, but if you do so, they will make sure that your payoff will feel wonderful. Whatever I'm saying now doesn't excuse the lackluster writing that appears in the Endfield beta test. As someone coming from Arknights, I want the feeling, the experience that I got from reading the Arknights story to be re-emulated into Endfield in a new and more enjoyable way. You're going from a 2D visual novel experience into a 3D world, the ability to have more intimate conversations, better animations, better world design, and lots of stuff that you could do in a 3D space in order to make a bigger banger story. Endfield might just be adopting the same story strategy that Arknights has. It could be a giant slow burner as well. But while they are doing so, I do hope that they will have more punch, more impact as they tell these stories. Remember that I stated that lots of Arknights players aren't even reading the story? Then why even play the game? Well, that's because the core gameplay, the tower defense element of this game, is very fun. At least to the players who choose to play this game for long. But why would it be fun? You're telling me Bloons tower defense, PvZ in a gacha game, that's a good thing? For the 6+ years that Arknights has been running, the way that they developed and designed this game is so different from traditional tower defense. I mean, straight up, it just doesn't behave the same when it's tower defense plus gacha. But yet, at the same time, it also doesn't share the same gacha culture as the other gacha games. There are 6 rarities in Arknights, 1 star to 6 star. Every quarter of the year, so that's about 3 months, they will release 4 new 6 stars, about 8 to 10 5 stars, and 1 or 2 4 stars. Usually, you are bringing 12 units into your gameplay. And right now in Arknights, we are nearing a total of 400 different operators across the rarities. That's a lot of units. So surely, in 6 years of AK, more than 3/4 of them are probably irrelevant by now. But that's just not true. It might happen in your other gacha games, but in Arknights, even if people were to obtain units from the 1st or 2nd year, they can still clear and play the game just fine. Yes, the newer units do make certain newer content easier, maybe because they are more targeted in the new mechanics that appear, but the older units will just need you to have a better mastery of knowing how to use them in order to defeat that same stage. Newer units can sometimes be also powerful, power creeping the older units, clearing so much content, but Hyperglyph will never let their experience be completely smooth sailing. There will be times that this unit will get challenged, and it's never about it being a one-man show. You are just using a squad of 12 after all, and with different things happening, you will want to mix it up. Maybe you'll have that newer unit in the squad, think of what older units to use, or sometimes even just eject them out, and think of your current roster, who's the best to bring into a stage. You can give me epic characters, super strong, destroys everything within the stage, but if the enemies are also paper thin and samey feel, where's the fun in playing the game? The opponents of Arknights do matter a lot. I did state that there's 400 operators in the game. There are more than 2 times of that when it comes to the enemies. More than 1,000 different enemies in Arknights history. In every month, we'll see about 10 new enemies added into the game, and strangely, they all can behave differently. They're not just reskin versions of older units. There's new mechanics in play. They have different ways to be stronger. They apply debuffs onto your units. They move differently. They position themselves differently on the map. They have different attack speed, different attack amounts. They vary so much that every time you see a new enemy in the stage, you need to react differently towards it. Also, with all these new enemies every month, it also comes with a brand new boss, the toughest enemy to kill. It stresses tons of players out, but it is immense joy and satisfaction to be able to clear it. Content in Arknights is kept very fresh, not just with these new enemies, but also with brand new game modes. It's not your traditional tower defense where you place someone, you leave them alone and idle. You have to be active in using your skills, you have to be active in repositioning your units, and when they introduce those game modes, It redefines how you even play the tower defense. Playing tower defense with a roguelike game mode, playing tower defense like it's an auto chess, playing it with very hardcore challenge modes. There's even a game mode that just feels like you're playing a completely different game. You're collecting resources, you're building a base, but yet there is that core connecting principle of tower defense. It's crazy how different it plays from the traditional tower defense that I can only say for you to see it for yourself. Experience the game. These are not things that are inaccessible for a new player. You can try it out, and then you'll realize just how much work they put to make an exceptional gameplay experience. If you ask the Arknights players, how can you be playing this game for so many years? It must be sunk cost fallacy. You've invested too much time and money into this game. Funny thing is, definitely more than half to if not 3/4 of the community is free to play. That is something that people can admit in the comment as well. We've done a poll before, so that's a proper statistic. But no, people wouldn't say it's sunk cost fallacy. The gameplay is just simply awesome, that it's keeping everybody engaged and loving the game. That is the reason that Arknights is staying successful. And that is also the identity of Arknights. Gameplay is primary in Arknights. While many other things are secondary, they all bolster up the game to be one of the greatest experiences. The story, the music, the character design, the world design, everything makes this one of the best times that I got to enjoy. So, you've got a good background of Arknights, whether or not you've played the game before. So now, let's bring it back to the extended IP, Arknights Endfield. Hypergriff's brand new title is a real-time strategy, action, semi-open world game. Arknights Endfield genre is definitely in direct competition with the likes of Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Wuthering Waves. As mentioned in the early part of the video, people will make comparisons with those big titles, asking for what they think are strengths of those games to be implemented into Endfield, or even trying to make the experience feel a bit more samey as compared to the bigger titles. They want the combat to feel similar, maybe the world exploration should also mimic certain things, and the gacha as well. But we're not looking for the same game. You've already invested years of your time playing Genshin or Honkai. Why would you want to invest that same amount of time into another game that provides the same experience? Yes, Endfield has the base element, which makes it feel like you're playing a different game. Like, oh yes, finally more activities that I get to do within a game. But the combat looks kind of the same to the eyes of many people when they watch streamers and videos. But your eyes can't tell you the full picture of how the combat in Endfield actually works. All of your units have a basic attack, your controlled unit and the 3 supporting ones. If your controlled unit performs a 5th attack, that is called a final strike. If you need to perform a dodge because an enemy is about to hit you, you may do so. You can dodge up to 2 times in a row. Dodge has a stamina. If you dodge all of the time, you will waste it all and you won't be able to dodge. All of your units have a skill, but they don't have an individual skill bar or SP bar. Instead, that SP bar is shared across your entire team with a bar of 3 on the bottom. All skills will only use 1 SP. You can use each of your unit skill at any time as long as you have available SP. If you run out of it, no skill can be used until you recharge that. There's no skill cooldown, so if you want to use the same skill on the same character, you can do so, again, just if you have enough SP. SP will recover naturally, but you can make it faster by either performing a final strike, a perfect dodge, or on certain skills of your units, they can give back some SP. Ultimates can be seen as much stronger skills. They do not use the SP bar. Instead, each character has an ultimate energy bar. It will recover naturally or can be accelerated by using your unit skills. Then, there are combo skills. Combo skills do not use the SP bar or the ultimate energy bar. Instead, they have a trigger condition where you must perform a specific action. Maybe do a final strike, add a certain infliction onto an enemy, take damage from the enemy. Every character has a different trigger condition. As long as you get that, then you will do some extra attacks and enjoy extra effects. Combo skill is the only skill that has a cooldown timer. The other skill and ultimates don't have that. It depends on your available energy. Hello? You there? It's been 100 seconds of me explaining the concept of the game. Guess what? I'm only halfway done. I still haven't explained to you guys how arts infliction work. I haven't explained to you guys how vulnerable works, how statuses work. And the thing is, when you have all these things in play, you don't just have a linear way of chaining all of these attacks. In fact, the way that you sequence attacks in Endfield almost looks like a giant web or a network. You're not going to just do skill A to B to C to D all the time and then reset the cycle. Instead, you'll be doing a lot of different fluid stuff. Sometimes you go from skill C to skill A, sometimes from B to C, you'll get a combo skill, you'll go into D, maybe use the ultimate, you go into A. Depending on whatsoever team comps that you do, there is going to be a lot of different action sequences that you end up learning. If I had to make a just comparison for Arknights Enfield's combat, I would say that it's akin to fighting games, with the likes of Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Skullgirls. In those games, you have a fixed number of buttons, but you don't just one-tap those buttons. Instead, you're learning how to sequence them, right? Which arrow on your joystick do you actually click on, and then afterwards, which 2 buttons do you put together, which 3 do you sequence together in order to perform a different type of attack. That is very similar to what's happening in Endfield. Every sequences of buttons lead to different outcomes, and that's how you combat the different enemies that appear as well. There's going to be loads for you to discover. With a single change of a teammate, maybe even a weapon or gear, you'll be reformatting your attack sequences to behave differently to suit the stages that you are playing within the game. And this discovery process is going to be quite similar to how it's like to change even a single teammate in Arknights. You'll be doing that quite a bit in Endfield as well. And with how people enjoy Arknights, Endfield players will also feel the same thing. It feels very strange when people try to compare the combat of Endfield to the existing gacha games, saying that it's a one-for-one copy. I don't think people will be saying that when a lot more of you get to try the game once the game releases. Here's a problem that this game can run into. Complex attack sequences is not gonna feel great to even learn if the enemies are just plain simple. It's one of the complaints that happened in both Beta Test 1 and Beta Test 2. If you watch a lot of the sponsored content creators, they're all getting maxed out accounts. Max level, max gear, max weapon, max skills, and they're using it to combat whatever the highest level enemy can offer, which doesn't even match the characters they're using. They tend to be 10-20 levels lower, which makes the game just feel like you don't have to care about all these intricacies that I mentioned, right? All the thing about the skill sequences, how to trigger a combo attack. Most of them just get the basic attack in, use whatever skills that seems available, and they win, because the enemies just are much weaker than what they are. If you try to play the game at natural progression, where you match your character's level with the enemy's level, you will see that there is difficulty. You do have to care how your skills are being used, and in that case, you do need to learn how the game actually works. Could you brute force the game? Totally. Max out everything, right? Build your units as fast as possible, make sure that you are better than the enemies. But of course, when you start getting into endgame content, into high-end content, right? They will be giving you things where you already maxed out your units. Now the enemies are going to be tougher. And that means you got to know what your units do. Another thing is that because the progression of this beta test is so overscaled compared to the enemies, the ability to ignore the mechanics of the enemies are a lot simpler in the early game. People don't seem to realize it, but every single enemy in Endfield is designed very much like AK. There are things that they allow and don't allow you to do. There are enemies that doesn't make it easy for you to dodge. There's enemies where they want to take as many hits as possible in order to not make sure they attack you anymore. There are enemies that needs you to let them attack before you attack them. There will be enemies that punishes you if you spam your skills and have no skill points anymore. And the mechanics can keep increasing with the introduction of more enemies in the future. We know that in Beta Test 1, there is an enemy that completely doesn't allow you to dash anymore if you're stuck within its fumes. There could be enemies that lowers your SP regen. There could be enemies that completely locks up your character. You need to do something to save them. A lot of different funky things that they can do that very much mimics the experience of what Arknights is like. To specifically my Arknights players, have this sort of imagination. Imagine if we have the Lancer enemies that you see in AK, in Endfield. Or the During casters, the one where from a very far range, they already start shooting arts damage at you. Or imagine some of the bosses as well. Essence of Evolution in Endfield, Pompeii in Endfield. How about Dragonverse? Maybe someone that can lock up your SP, unable to use skills and ultimates. When we talk about the identity of Arknights being in Endfield, there is already inherent attempts to show that they will make it possible in the form of their enemy design. This comes down to the question of what their content cycle in the game is going to be. How often are they going to add new main stories or side stories for us to play? Will there be new maps? Will there be fun new enemies for us to experience each time? Will there be a good combination of enemies in order for us to react differently? When the game hit 2 or 3 years or beyond, are the older units still going to perform as well? Will there be balance in the game such that the older units still remain as a viable option to clear content? And on top of that, is there going to be good game modes? Arknights is flashed with permanent game modes all throughout for people to play, and they don't feel like a chore. Instead, they are a joy for people to put time into. And that's what some people want to get out of Endfield. Is it a game that they can feel good putting hours of a day to play? In order for Endfield to feel like a passionate, great addition into the Arknights space, it needs to adopt the same design philosophy that Arknights has. The amount of love and care that they put to the gameplay is what we need to feel in Endfield. That is the point that I'm trying to make in this video. That marks the end of my first video for the review for Endfield. The next video will be about the gacha, and the final one will be about the base. See you guys there.